Greetings everyone, this is Dominick from the Comic Book Report YouTube channel, over here doing another guest review for organicpricedbooks.com. And today we're looking at an oversized hardcover edition from Marvel Comics. This is Benjamin Percy's X-Force Volume 3. Yes, the hardcover edition. Smack dab right in the middle of the Krakoa era that began with Jonathan Hickman's House of X Powers of 10. Really excited to talk about this one today, so why don't we go ahead and get started. The issues in this volume were written by Benjamin Percy and penciled primarily by Robert Gill, Chris Allen, and more. The comics in this volume were published by Marvel Comics beginning in 2022. As to what it collects, the volume itself collects X-Force, the 2019 series, issues 27 through 38, and this is an oversized hardcover edition with glossy print paper stock, a sewn binding, and a total of 328 pages. As far as what you need to read prior to picking up this volume, I would minimally recommend the volumes 1 and 2 that lead directly into the story arcs found within the pages, and as I mentioned earlier, I would recommend kicking off with House of X Powers of 10, which is essentially a maxi series that reestablishes the status quo for all of the mutants in the Marvel Universe. But yes, X-Force is kind of the Black Ops special operations, oftentimes using lethal force branch of kind of the X-Men essentially. In my mind, those are really the priority reads prior to picking up this book. Certainly it helps if you know a lot of the mutant characters, again, in that kind of whole X-Men, greater X-Men universe. But yeah, that's kind of the bare bones. But now let's go ahead and take a look at this dust jacket in greater detail. We are treated to kind of this burnt orange, reddish color. We have our title X-Force, and then we have part of the cover from one of the issues in the collection, comprising basically the front cover of the dust jacket. So I will say this right from the jump, if you haven't seen some of the other oversized hardcovers for this era in the kind of Krakoa era, they all follow this kind of same design aesthetic, but each series has its own color. X-Force has basically been kind of this burnt orange red color. I will say the color we get on this Volume 3, at least my printing, is maybe a hair more red than the previous volumes, but it all still blends rather nicely. It is really fun to see on a bookcase. I know I have read and reviewed, whether on organicpricedbooks.com or on my channel, some of the other series around this time that got the hardcover treatment, like Marauders and Excalibur, which have a blue or green kind of color scheme, respectively. At any rate, it's just a really nice design choice. It went pretty minimalistic as far as the graphics. Like the back cover here, it really just has some Krakoan alphabet lettering and then just some details about the book. Again, just against that backdrop of X-Force's colors for this era, which is that kind of burnt orange. Okay, and with that out of the way, we're going to go ahead and transition to one final look at this dust jacket. I'll do the interior flaps this time, and I'll open it up so you can see everything at a glance, and then we'll transition over to showing the under the dust jacket hardback print as well, or what's on the hardback book itself. Again, just to give you a more comprehensive look at the exteriors and kind of build of this book. So like I said, this does follow the formatting of a lot of the other oversized hardcovers. I will say Marvel is a bit inconsistent as to what got this hardcover treatment. I've heard rumors and whispers that they're kind of distancing themselves from oversized hardcovers in general outside of something like the omnibus editions. I really hope that's not the case, just because I really do enjoy this format as well. You get all of the oversized feeling of an omnibus without it being overly long or cumbersome, and in cases like this, it collects handfuls of issues that are maybe not in omnibus format yet. And I really liked all these releases we got during the Krakoa era. I just wish we got a bit more. And that was the hardcover itself with kind of the X-Force logo branded across it, very similar to the volumes 2 and 1. But that's the exteriors. Now let's go ahead and transition to take a look at the binding for this guy. Like I mentioned earlier, I believe it's sewn binding. I can't really tell if there's glue or not. I think overall my binding was fair. I would have liked to see the pages lay a bit more flat. As it stands, we had a little bit of gutter loss, but nothing too critical, at least by my eyeing. Yeah, not too bad. Okay, now without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into the collection proper. We have some end pages, title page, publication information, creative breakdowns, stuff like that, and then we basically jump right in. One of the things these collections have been doing is we have a couple pages of kind of, I think of them almost as prologue, and then we jump into kind of the chapter break of whatever issue the volume starts with. I think it's a really fun way to feel like you're jumping right into the action, and then again, punctuated with the kind of chapter breaks. I do like as well, these collections have the cover reproduced, but with an overlay of kind of whatever the color theming is for the book. So in this case, you have the cover, the issue number, but it has kind of that burnt orange color over the top of it. And then you have the covers actually reproduced in the back of the book as part of the extras, which is really nice. I'll show you that toward the end. And now this is a volume 3, so we are picking up kind of right in the middle of this run, but I want to be delicate for spoilers for people that are maybe interested in this run that haven't caught up quite yet. I am, of course, flipping through images, but I'll keep the speaking parts rather vague. Essentially, as I mentioned earlier, X-Force is kind of the Black Ops, most dangerous missions, kind of for the X-Men or greater X-Men teams. With the Krakoa era, which for those that don't know, it's basically the island nation for all mutant kind, X-Force also functions as kind of a primary security force for the X-Men or the mutants as a whole. And I really like that functionality because you still have kind of the mission-based Black Ops feel, but you also have this added layer of kind of protection of their nation and kind of national security, I would say. But it still has that kind of underhanded, disavowing kind of feel to it. The team roster changes a bit throughout this run, but some mainstays we have for the bulk of it. We have Beast, we have Sage, and these are some of the main kind of primary leads on the team. I'd say Beast is probably in charge, with Sage kind of being the tech person that's in charge of communications, pretty high up herself. Wolverine is a pretty big mainstay on this team, I'd say overall. Kid Omega, we have characters like Domino, which is really fun. And then this Volume 3 actually does a couple roster changes and onboards some new mutant characters to the team, at least for this Krakoa era, which I personally enjoyed. I don't want to spoil that too much here for those that are enjoying reading along if you haven't had a chance to catch up yet. But yeah, this team is really fun. It kind of favors more violent or in some cases cerebral mutants, and I think the team is pretty eclectic. You know, a lot of them have past history, but some of the way they function or click together in this era I found to be fascinating. I actually think how Percy approaches characters like the Beast in particular is pretty interesting. I really like kind of the swings he's taken overall. For those that don't know as well, Benjamin Percy not only has this run on X-Force that goes throughout the Krakoa era, but he was also simultaneously writing the Wolverine series. So having Wolverine in both series was really fun because they had that same consistent voice from Benjamin Percy, and I've enjoyed thoroughly everything I've read from him in these twin books. I would go as far as to say both of those series, this X-Force run and the Wolverine, are probably my top 5 runs during the Krakoa era that I've read. Anyway, very, very fun stuff. The art throughout this book as well is pretty consistent. We have a couple different pencilers, but I think it maintains a kind of uniformity throughout, even as it changes hands a bit. Something else to note about this collection is this volume does a good job of wrapping up some previous plot threads that were kind of seeded in earlier volumes, and overall it also has the feel of having a couple smaller self-contained story arcs. So across its dozen issues, give or take, we have maybe like 3 or 4 smaller distinct stories, and why I like that is because I feel like you get a bit more bang for your buck. Overall, I had a lot of fun with this collection. I think it really maintained the quality of the previous volumes. I didn't notice much narrative kind of sagging. I actually felt like I was really interested all the way through, cover to cover, and it's maintained, again, for me, that feeling of being one of the more premier X-based series during this era. And as I transition to showing you some of the extras at the back, which include those covers that are reproduced, as I mentioned, the variant covers, a couple other miscellaneous this and that, I do want to say as well, this collection does have a parental advisory. This is large parts due to the violence and kind of blood that's in this book. There's also kind of more adult themes. This is a more mature series for an X title. I didn't think it was anything too gruesome, but maybe younger readers should be advised. Obviously, discretion is advised. At any rate, as we take a look again at this variant cover art gallery, I just really like that these are included in the extras for these oversized hardcover editions. Seeing the covers kind of full scale printed on the backs, it's just nice. You know, we don't have that thumbnail view for the most part. We have full reproduced pages devoted to these covers, and it's a great way if you're like me and you really only collect collected editions to see some of the covers that were on the stands or on the shelves within the recent years. I also think it pads out the collection rather nicely, and again, you get showcasing from a lot of different artists, things like that. I've had a blast following this series in recent years, and I sincerely hope Marvel decides to finish this run in this format, as I'm pretty invested at this point. I really like these characters, and I really like the direction that Benjamin Percy has gone. I find that in all of these collections, there's been one or two mutant characters in particular that end up getting highlighted or going kind of deeper into their interior life or the character development, and I've really appreciated that. I would say maybe Volume 1 was probably the character Domino. Volume 2, we got into characters like Kid Omega. For this Volume 3, I think Sage had some moments to shine, along with a couple others. Pretty fun stuff here. Like I said, no complaints from me. I had a fun ride. If you're interested in your own copy, please check out organicpricedbooks.com, and if you want a full, more extensive review, please check out my channel, The Comic Book Report, in coming weeks. Thanks for watching, everyone. Have a good one.